Welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast, your go-to source for personal, professional, and organizational growth and development. We hope you tune in often for all things people management, organizational development and change, organizational leadership, and social impact related. Maximize your personal and organizational potential with Human Capital Innovations Podcast. Welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. As part of our inspiring TED Talk series, spotlighting can't miss TED Talks and their key takeaways, today I explore Angela Lee Duckworth's famous 2013 TED Talk, Grit, the Power of Passion and Perseverance. Welcome back to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. I'm excited to be with you again today as I explore Angela Lee Duckworth's famous 2013 TED Talk, Grit, the Power of Passion and Perseverance. Leaving a high-flying job in consulting, Angela Lee Duckworth took a job teaching math to 7th graders in a New York public school. She quickly realized that IQ wasn't the only thing separating the successful students from those who struggled. Here, she explains her theory of grit as a predictor of success. I'll catch you on the flip side of the first clip.
When I was 27 years old, I left a very demanding job in management consulting for a job that was even more demanding, teaching. I went to teach 7th graders math in the New York City public schools. And like any teacher, I made quizzes and tests, I gave out homework assignments. When the work came back, I calculated grades. What struck me was that IQ was not the only difference between my best and my worst students. Some of my strongest performers did not have stratospheric IQ scores. Some of my smartest kids weren't doing so well. And that got me thinking. The kinds of things you need to learn in 7th grade math, sure, they're hard. Ratios, decimals, the area of a parallelogram. But these concepts are not impossible. And I was firmly convinced that every one of my students could learn the material if they worked hard and long enough. After several more years of teaching, I came to the conclusion that what we need in education is a much better understanding of students and learning from a motivational perspective, from a psychological perspective. In education, the one thing we know how to measure best is IQ. But what if doing well in school and in life depends on much more than your ability to learn quickly and easily?
Spoiler alert, it has very little to do with overall raw intelligence, and it has everything to do with your perseverance, resilience, and willing to work hard over an extended period of time. So as she starts off this TED Talk, she of course is focusing on the 7th graders she taught and thinking about the role of IQ in success and their grades and how they performed in her class. But as you'll see as she continues through the TED Talk, she's not just talking about learning. She is also referring to professional endeavors as well. And really, it's important for us to remember that we are all lifelong learners, or at least we should be. If we hope to be successful in any endeavor in this life, whether it be our personal relationships, our family relationships, or career expertise and career success, if we're going to be effective in the workplace, we need to be continual learners. And so her message definitely applies to everybody equally well. And for any leader listening to this podcast today, I hope that you'll consider how you approach people on your team in terms of their raw talent and intelligence versus their actual resilience, persistence, their stamina, their hard work, and their willingness to really put in the effort. Because ultimately, that's what's really going to count.
So I left the classroom and I went to graduate school to become a psychologist. I started studying kids and adults in all kinds of super challenging settings. And in every study, my question was, who is successful here and why? My research team and I went to West Point Military Academy. We tried to predict which cadets would stay in military training and which would drop out. We went to the National Spelling Bee and tried to predict which children would advance farthest in competition. We studied rookie teachers working in really tough neighborhoods, asking which teachers are still going to be here in teaching by the end of the school year. And of those, who will be the most effective at improving learning outcomes for their students? We partnered with private companies asking which of these salespeople is going to keep their jobs and who's going to earn the most money. In all those very different contexts, one characteristic emerged as a significant predictor of success. And it wasn't social intelligence, it wasn't good looks, physical health, and it wasn't IQ. It was grit.
So in a moment, she'll go into more about what she means by grit. But I think it's so important to recognize how her and her team, these social psychologists who are trying to understand who is successful and why, and in the process of learning in all of these different environments. And the one commonality, the variable that they found to be predictive of who will be successful was ultimately grit. Again, she'll define that more in just a moment and give some more examples. But this definitely rings true to my experience in my own personal life and as I've observed those around me. Some of the most intelligent people I know, like in terms of raw intelligence, raw talent, IQ, they can often be some of the stupidest people I know, and often not all that successful, frankly. And in part, it's because they've relied so much on their intelligence and haven't developed a work ethic or a willingness to really put in the time and energy necessary to stay on top of your game. You can only get so far with raw intelligence, and especially in your earlier years, you can really go a long, long way without working hard. But as you get into the real world, it's that grit that ultimately is going to determine in the long run who is going to be successful.
Grit is passion and perseverance for very long-term goals. Grit is having stamina. Grit is sticking with your future, day in, day out, not just for the week, not just for the month, but for years, and working really hard to make that future a reality. Grit is living life like it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Passion, persistence, stamina, long-term sustained effort. That's really what grit comes down to. And I'll tell you what, I will take employees with grit over employees with raw talent and raw intelligence any day of the week. Now, obviously, you need people with a baseline ability and understanding, with the skills and the capacity to be able to do the job. But all else being equal, you get two different people together, and one is decently intelligent from a raw perspective, but it has a lot of grit and passion and perseverance. I will take that person over the higher IQ person standing next to them, who isn't as passionate, who isn't as hardworking, and who doesn't have as much grit. I'll take that first person any day of the week. I'm excited to announce the publication of my new book from HCI Press, The Alchemy of Truly Remarkable Leadership: Ordinary, Everyday Actions that Produce Extraordinary Results. Consider how the nature of work has shifted over the past 50 years. With increased globalization, rapid technological advancement, and the shift in economic composition, the average job of today looks very different than the average job of 50 years ago. What will the jobs and organizations of tomorrow look like? Moreover, what does this all mean for organizational leaders? What are the core competencies and capabilities of organizations and their leadership that are prepared for continued disruption and geopolitical and socioeconomic shifts? Regardless of what the future holds, increasingly, leaders need to be socially minded, data-driven, decisive, champions of talent, and disruptors of the traditional notions of leadership, teams, organizations, and work. The alchemy of truly remarkable leadership will help you to explore your own leadership competencies and capabilities and consider ways to apply and implement them into your workplace and personal life. I'm excited to share my insights with you.
A few years ago, I started studying grit in the Chicago public schools. I asked thousands of high school juniors to take grit questionnaires, and then waited around more than a year to see who would graduate. Turns out that grittier kids were significantly more likely to graduate, even when I matched them on every characteristic I could measure, things like family income, standardized achievement test scores, even how safe kids felt when they were at school. So it's not just at West Point or the National Spelling Bee that grit matters, it's also in school, especially for kids at risk for dropping out.
At-risk populations, underserved populations, minority groups, and those that often have the deck stacked against them a bit. In many ways, they can oftentimes develop grit, persistence, perseverance, and that attribute is going to be so essential to them as they go throughout their lives. So what she is finding when she goes into the Chicago schools is that really there's nothing about socioeconomic status, there's nothing about IQ, and she lists a whole bunch of different things, and they basically controlled for all these different elements to try to see what determined success the most, and ultimately it came down to grit. So whether you're talking about someone from a high socioeconomic status or someone from a low socioeconomic status or not, ultimately it's that willingness and that perseverance that's going to be the best predictor, particularly and more so for the more at-risk youth populations. So think about that and how that might translate into the workforce. Think about those on your team, those who might look the part and may seem to fit right off the bat, as compared to those that might appear to be a little bit more rough around the edges. How do you approach them? What's your perception of them, and how do you act around them? What opportunities do you provide them? I think these are really important questions to think about if we truly recognize the importance of this idea of grit and someone's ability to be persistent.
To me, the most shocking thing about grit is how little we know, how little science knows about building it. Every day, parents and teachers ask me, how do I build grit in kids? What do I do to teach kids a solid work ethic? How do I keep them motivated for the long run? The honest answer is, I don't know. What I do know is that talent doesn't make you gritty. Our data show very clearly that there are many talented individuals who simply do not follow through on their commitments. In fact, in our data, grit is usually unrelated or even inversely related to measures of talent.
So we don't know much about how one might develop grit, or really this passion and perseverance, this willingness, this hard work ethic. We don't know a ton about really what makes the difference in someone developing that in their lives. But I think you might be able to look around you and look at those people who are exceptional examples of hardworking, sustained effort types of individuals, those people who you would define as grit. Look at the types of habits that they have. Look at what they do on a regular basis. If you pay attention to that, I think you can start to get some clues. Now, is there a one-size-fits-all? Are you going to be able to just follow a recipe to help kids become more gritty, or to help your people, your employees, to become more gritty. Of course not. People are far too complex for that, to be able to take that kind of a simplistic approach. But we can model and encourage good hard work ethic and gritty types of perseverance and behaviors. We can reward those behaviors and let people know that we are going to reward people for their effort and the outcomes, and not just on showy points or style points.
So far, the best idea I've heard about building grit in kids is something called growth mindset. This is an idea developed at Stanford University by Carol Dweck, and it is the belief that the ability to learn is not fixed, that it can change with your effort. Dr. Dweck has shown that when kids read and learn about the brain and how it changes and grows in response to challenge, they're much more likely to persevere when they fail, because they don't believe that failure is a permanent condition.
I love the principle of growth mindset. I think it's so vital, and it absolutely connects with this idea of grit. If someone has a fixed mindset, then why would you work hard? Why would you put extra effort in? Because the deck's stacked against you, you look around, you see other more talented, more intelligent people. Why would you bother? But if you have a growth mindset, you recognize that with consistent, sustained effort over time, that you can accomplish great things. And often, if you take the tortoise and the hare kind of an approach, often even it's those people with the growth mindset and those people with grit and persistence that over time can overtake and surpass the performance and the outcome of perhaps the raw talent, the raw IQ of those people around them.
So growth mindset is a great idea for building grit, but we need more. And that's where I'm going to end my remarks, because that's where we are. That's the work that stands before us. We need to take our best ideas, our strongest intuitions, and we need to test them. We need to measure whether we've been successful, and we have to be willing to fail, to be wrong, to start over again with lessons learned. In other words, we need to be gritty about getting our kids grittier. Thank you.
It's a rather simple principle, a rather simple concept, and hopefully it's one we can quickly and easily grasp. I think as you think about your own life, you think about your own experiences, you think about family, friends, colleagues, your coworkers, people on your team, that you'll recognize that what she's saying is absolutely true. Just because someone has raw talent, just because someone has raw IQ, doesn't mean they're going to be particularly successful. Doesn't mean they're going to be your top performers. And conversely, just because somebody may not have as much raw talent or IQ, maybe they don't learn as quickly, maybe they have to work harder in order to pick something up. But when they're hard workers, when they're persistent, when they do it over a sustained period of time, they can accomplish great things. And so what I want as a leader, I want a whole team of gritty people. I want people to recognize it's okay to fail. It's okay for them to try, and that it might take them some time to learn and grow, but they recognize that they need to consistently work at it. I would take those people any day of the week over someone with raw intelligence but no work ethic. We need more people in our teams who are gritty, and we need to prepare the next generation of students and workers to become more gritty as well, so that we can face the many difficult challenges facing us in this complex world. As always, thank you for joining me for this episode of the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. I hope you stay healthy and safe, that you can find meaning and purpose at work each and every day, and I hope you have a great week. We are excited about the launch of HCI's new magazine, Human Capital Leadership. Human Capital Leadership is a free, interactive e-magazine designed to help individuals, leaders, and organizations find innovative approaches to maximize their human capital potential. We will be publishing issues quarterly in August, November, February, and May. Check out the first issue and let us know what you think. Thanks again for joining us for this episode of the Human Capital Innovations Podcast. I hope you stay healthy and safe and that you have a great week.